Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're having a blessed day. I'm sorry that we have not been on for the last month or so, as we are in the process of packing and planning on moving from our home to a new home, and it'll be a long-distance trip. But when last we met on The Mouse Says, The Butler Didn't Do It, we were reading Escape to a New Hope, involving the Ukrainian refugees and former Russian soldier of the Bilik family in Dim, Anastasia, Ivana, Dennis, and Tiny Tatiana. They had arrived in New York and things were scheduled. Most of Ivana and Ani's secret was out due to them meeting Stephanie Thompson, and the fact that she is the daughter of Mac and Sonny MacMichaels, and she is a gifted psychic and part of the New Hope Manduala coven. The puppies have gotten a little bigger over the last couple of weeks in Chuck and Maggie Lou, and the infamous Mouse is laying here behind me, to which she has gotten herself in trouble today as I'm trying to brush my hair and do things, and she's grabbing onto my braid and pulling it. So, you also may be seeing a few kitty cats around the area, as we have two new black kittens that our guys brought in a way. So, we now continue with chapter 45 in A New Hope, Escape to a New Hope, which are part of the series of my unpublished stories under the pen name of Cheryl Ann Butler. Thank you. Chapter 45. 2 hours later, the 77 Dodge van was loaded. Tash gave Annie the keys. When the cashier check arrives, there is one for you for the van. It is marked. Thank you. She put the keys in the ignition to start it and followed the oddity of the 1974 Winnebago Brave that was used by Stevie Thompson's as her spiritual mobile office. Rain owned one as a 79 for mobile vet service, along with the all-wheel drive full-size van for when he was needed in bad weather on a farm in the middle of nowhere or on the outskirts of New Hope in Pennsylvania. The all-wheel drive van he brought off of the Crystal Heart Lodge in Bed and Breakfast, as it was now being overhauled for when Scout got her license next year, for her to be able to do house calls, as she was not learning how was now. Stop it, Chuck! As she was now learning how to work on the different LED and flat screen TVs, along with some of the older console styles and several large projection sets. Chapter 46. Sunday morning found Dima looking at his first American newspaper for November 19th. He sat at the dining room table with a cup of coffee, trying to figure out the structure of first the Bucks County Courier Times, then the Philadelphia Inquirer, with the Trentonian. Are you okay with that? Jess MacMichaels sipped his coffee and smiled as he looked at the coupons Dima set aside from the Sunday paper. Dima folded the paper to set it down. He looked at the two men who looked as though they'd stepped out of the late 1960s or early 1970s of the hippie era in the U.S. history that he had read about. They were weeks apart in age, about 39 years, Rain had stated. Stevie's older brother had long blonde, riotous curls, flaked with a hint of gray that even pulled back into a braid, thanks to his daughter, Mickey, hung to his waist. His blue eyes sparkled with the mischief like that of his sisters. Neither Jess or Dan looked anything like the teachers you would see in Russia with their staunch dress. This man, Jess's build, looked like he was a practiced military man. Yet Dima had been told Jess had never served in the service, but was trained to fight and hold his own by a U.S. Navy SEAL, his and Stevie's papa. Jess stood over 6 foot easily, and according to Rain, he could hold his own in a boxing ring. He was a light heavyweight state champion in the Golden Gloves of boxing. Then there was Daniel Greystone Lightfoot, the composer and high school orchestra band leader, who was unique in his own right. Dan stood about an inch shy of 6 foot. His thick raven black hair hung loosely about his face. The bangs inside were worn in a loose toss, parted down the center that hung to his pecs. The back reached below his belt line. His dark beard was trimmed close and just starting to gray under his lip. Those dark green eyes of his danced with laughter that depicted half of his German-Polish mother and quarter Nanacoat Native American and German-Polish father. So, where do we begin in the ways of this internet school? Dima had asked. The men stood for Dima to lean on his cane and followed them into the back of the house. Our office and computer center is behind the library. You'll find all we need in here, Jess had explained to him. They passed through the multi-book shelves that lined the room into a room that encompassed the former patio that ran the length of the rear of the Gothic-style home built in 1691. Beyond the wall of glass lay the flagstone tier that descended to the gardens and the wood-lined path to the Delaware River. Like the home he and Annie were to buy, the front entrance of the house faced the river, but the back, which faced the footbridge, contained an entrance door that held a smaller door. This door was created so that Mickey had the use of it and referred to it as my hobbit hole. It was slightly round and circular to where it actually looked like something out of the Shire in the Lord of the Rings. This is incredible. Dima looked from one of the many computer banks to the chalkboard and the 18-foot length of the printer center, built to climb on an array of staggered counters bracketed into the length of the tall wall. Jess slid an oversized office chair to him. "Take a seat, dude, and we'll explain." He leaned a hip on the computer desk. Dima eased himself into the chair, even though he was still feeling the pain of the surgeries he had had. He tried to ignore them. Each of these desktops or laptops are set up for different grades, K through 12. Others are set for college and university students. They carry their own email address and are set up through Bluetooth. These printers to each computer are set up over there. They're set up more than so. An individual class you're going to be working in, and you'll get possibly several emails through the day. You check each morning. If you have one, you respond. You'll get maybe a dozen a day. Respond and work with that student individually. Sometimes you'll get a kid that just needs reassurance and needs to know you believe in them, or someone to listen to them, because sometimes they need an ear, and you become their true parent. Dan rubbed the side of his beard. Yeah, there are times you're going to get a kid like I was, and Ari, a total fuck-up according to their parents, and it will cause them to look at themselves, to question their own abilities, when it's actually the issue with the parent, not the child. Their worth, and as to the way they look at themselves in their own eyes, caused by their parents, or a family member, or somebody they mistakenly looked up to. That's because the parents are total asses and don't give a shit about the kid they brought into the world or have custody of, or the parent's a total loser. That kid is sometimes just a paycheck for their booze, drugs, or their bingo, or their casino bus ride. Dima raised an eyebrow, then looked to Jess. Jess smiled. Dan and his cousin Ari had been there, done that, got the t-shirt and the ball cap. Dan nodded. We were not permitted to get involved with the students' home life in Russia, Dima explained. A lot of times I wished I could have, and maybe have saved one or two from the streets, or from running away from the orphanages they were placed in. Jess was sitting with his head dropped and nodding. I fully understand. Unfortunately, I'm dealing with two kids that, well, I wish I could grab their parents or guardians by the throat and shake the living hell out of them, or have them put behind bars for life. He looked up. I've worked with Pandora Frankens since she was in the 2nd grade. She's now in 11th. She now needs no help in any form of education. She carries an A+ grade and is in the line for a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University. Also, over the summer, when she is home from Oxford, she will be attending Juilliard School of Music. However, her lovely mother, Cleo, is just through working on her 6th marriage and 12th or 13th boyfriend in between those sad ass marriages. Pandora is from her 3rd boyfriend, between her 2nd and 3rd marriage. Her father never knew about his daughter. Babe Deember was killed in a firefight in Iraq. In high school, Jess made the mistake of dating Cleopatra. Dima started to explain, but he got smart. Dan started to explain, but he got smart. He put his hand on Jess's shoulder. Yes, one mistake after another, it seems, on my part. The exception is I was blessed with Mickey thanks to one of those mistakes. Jess flew out of breath. Pandora dropped a bomb on Jess. She couldn't go to the police when she was 8 because her then stepfather was a state trooper and he was abusing her. She ran away and turned up at the only place she felt safe because of Stevie helping her with her reading. Here. Dan looked at the teacher. Jess pointed to the floor. I made the call to Officer Jim Calhoun and Richie Allman. To make a long story short, they investigated. He was charged and did the time for the crime. Cleo moved on to the next ass. CPS put Pandora in foster care with Ricer and Early Boone. A year later, she was back to square one when the caseworkers were forced by the court and her mother's lawyer and counselor to place her back with her mother. That was with no care as to what the child's counselor had to say, because she wanted Pandora to remain with Ricer and Early. Then Cleo doesn't give a shit. Everything is only her in her own world. Just shook his head. Pandora has been in Jess's world on and off through the last 9 years, in him getting a phone call all hours of the day or night from different hiding places. With the use of the phone he paid the bill for to keep her safe, but he managed to help her keep her grades up. Dan gave a nod. This guy is one of the best. She's first bassist in the orchestra and works full-time at the bookstore. She's, as we've said, been offered a scholarship to Oxford and has her own apartment over the tattoo parlor where she helps Sloth Amintop keep his house. This man here has given her belief in herself to do all of this. Shit. Dima looked up at Jess, who just sat there and nodded. She rescued Jess and Mickey. She found Tammy shooting up in a library parking lot and called Stevie, who already had visions of her brother dying and Tammy owning everything. They called the police, then Mama Mystic, and later Mom threw a fit over him drinking Tang in the morning. She knocked it out of his hand when Mickey, at only a few weeks, if that, flipped out. Turned out Tammy laced that shit he always drank with antifreeze and rat poisoning. Dan took a deep breath. She almost cost me my brother here and my goddaughter if it wasn't for Pandora and little spooky sis and Mama Mystic. I'd like to be able to do this and work to help the children. Dima shook his head as he drummed on the desk. How can someone do this to a child? And this Tommy, to someone she loves. But these things happened notoriously in Russia, too. There is high alcoholism and drugs there. Jess blew out a breath. Credence Blake. The man shook his bangs from his eyes. Booze, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And this little guy has no clue he's nothing more than a damn paycheck to his guardians. Guardians he should have never been placed with, Dan growled. It sucks. He crossed his arms over his chest. And she is such a bitch. Always has been. Dima sat up to lean forward. Jess picked up the folder to pass it to the man. Dima opened it to look down at the first page. The photo of a young boy, no more than 9, was paper-clipped to the identification page. He read the information. Wait a minute. He has special needs? He has learning disabilities and severe brain damage. He is required by state guidelines? No? That he is to have special education? He is placed with his aunt and yet. Lisa Schultz is the queen of denial, Dan growled. Credence is my late cousin, Ari, and her late husband's son. Cy Blake and Lisa Suzette Blake Jr., now Schultz. He was her older brother. Their mother has had issues with the Manduala coven since high school. But Cy was always cool. Lisa and her old man only took in credence because the state funds and the pension he receives from their jobs, along with their life insurance payment. Dan dropped his arms. I've been in the middle of legal issues for over 2 years, since both Cy and Ari were killed and Creed was injured, and New Hope was devastated in a massive police chase caused by a woman drunk and high on meth. He's 8 years old, and because of Lisa and Godfrey, he hasn't been in school since the accident in the final weeks of his kindergarten year. I had to step in and force their hand. It took a court order. He missed the last 2 weeks, so now he's been placed in New Hope Educational and Learning Systems online satellite school and learning center, here with Jess and you. You'll have your hands full. I'm sorry, because you're going to have to start all over with his schooling. Jess locked eyes with him, from reteaching him his alphabet to how to even count. Ah, it will be done properly, Dima nodded. Thank you, Dan smiled. The man looked to the large windows as they heard the crunch of the white seashells on the pathway from the river. Chapter 47. Dima saw Annie and the children, with Jess's daughter Mickey, coming up the pathway through the large floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Delaware River. She stood, she was a tiny doll baby. She stood 2 foot 11 inches tall and danced about as if she were a ballerina. Puddinhead, the long-haired, wire-furred dachshund, was running along the trail with T.S. Eliot, the red fox with the white-tipped tail and ear, and 2 Southern American rodents called capybaras. They both stood at least 2 foot tall at the shoulders. The female, Princess Di, weighed 80 pounds or more, and her companion, Bobby Sands, was about the same, although 10 months younger, and he was still considered an adolescent. He was told they still had growth spurts. They were not fully grown, and tiny Mickey was adored by them. Dima found these animals to be quite friendly, enjoyed cuddling, along with a pet and scratch or two. Just as 4 cats liked to tease them. There were times when the house sounded like a riot was underway as the animals chased about to drag the children into their fun. He watched Annie open the porch door next to the catio, and that was when he heard her call out, "Dima?" "Schoolroom," Jess called back. She came through the library to enter into it. "You're Michael, Jess." She pointed out the home us wish to buy on the island to the north. There is a boat near it. Ah, shit. There shouldn't be. That means I'm calling the coppers, Daddy. Nobody should be trying to dock there. The dock and the wharf are damaged, Mickey called out. Okay, sweetie. Make sure you tell Beckers what you fully saw. Give a proper description. On it, Daddy, she called back. Annie looked at him with a raised eyebrow. I have one question, if I may. In the distance, there is a tall, beautiful bell tower of a church. Michael says it is an old church that you turned into a home, Daniel. I do not understand how, but it would seem. It is amazing to me." Her eyes became alight. "It was the original Quaker Assembly Church," Dan explained, "built here in 1689. That's when the cornerstone that Mickey found was laid. I purchased it out of Juilliard and started the repairs. Jess bought this place a short year before." Jess raised a hand. "Something you need to know about. There's a lot of places here in New Hope that have ghosts and are haunted. Dan's place is one, and O'Shaughnessy's Irish Pub is another. A third is the Crystal Heart Lodge Inn Bed and Breakfast. It's owned by the Manduala Foundation. Only the ghost at the pub is a giant schnauzer named Otis. He rules the roost there and is friendly with children and likes to trip several of the family members, especially Peekaboo and Polka Dot, when they and Dottie's daughter, Brittany, are waiting tables. He's been known to knock over glasses to get the ice, and the ghost and the ghost hat and the ghost at the inn are a large dog and and the ghost at the inn are a large dog that is half St. Bernard and half Newfoundland named Beastly, and a large black stallion named Shadow. You will hear the heavy hoof falls and the hoofs hitting the ground as Shadow gallops up towards the front door of the inn. He originally belonged to Papu Theo. "Do you see them, these spectrals?" Annie asked. "No. If you're fortunate enough for him, Otis, to take a liking to you, you'll feel him rub against you. His fur is sometimes sometimes his snoot will brush your hand to nudge you for a pet. He passed in the time of the Revolutionary War. The family breeds giant schnauzers. Their portraits are on the wall of the pub. They also breed another large dog. I'm sure you'll meet soon. Napoleon Bull Mastiffs. Think Fang in Harry Potter. Our Aunt Liliana has had them as service dogs all her life. But with Otis, Dan smiled, if you're on his bad side, you're liable to get a beer or whatever you're drinking dumped on you and knocked off your stool or chair. He was a huge dog." "Oh my, are you serious?" Annie blinked at him. "Yep, and at times you'll hear the empty bell tower at Dan's sound off with the strike of a bell that isn't and hasn't been attacked in almost 200 years. Jess looked at the man he called brother. "It's buried. 3 feet of it is sunk in the ground, and a foot of it is visible. It was rediscovered in the flood a couple of years ago." Annie followed his eyes to Dan. The man nodded his dark head. Annie's chin dropped to her chest. They were replacing the bell when the flood struck in the winter of 1841. The wagon overturned and the replacement bell was lost in the ensuing mud. It wasn't found until our Historical Society of New Hope Guild asked if I would mind them looking for it. I, of course, agreed. They found it and decided to commemorate it and the flood with a plaque, to which I'm grateful to be considered that my home is part of this town's heritage. Daddy, Uncle Lightfoot, Miss Beckers is sending someone by both riverboat and the Delaware River, Mickey called out. Chapter 48. Olya Lenovich, with her partner, Desta Meskovlevich, had driven the Zaz off the road on the back road as the Brom twins had left the hotel to drive to the cottage they rented from their Uncle Michel. It was he who was kneeling on the boy's back. Ola stood over the prone and trembling body of the couple. They ran off the road on the outskirts of Lübeck, Germany, on Sunday evening of November 19th. The girl was terrified. Kashkov had given them his thoughts on the situation with the truck. Meskovich pulled Dirk's head back, stretching the cords in his neck. Desta placed a barrel of the gun against the teen's temple. "You purchased this piece of shit from who? Where are they?" he demanded. "An old man. I not know where he is." Dirk squeezed his eyes closed. "You lie." He put the gun under the teen's chin. Olya walked in front of Adelheid as she played with a long, vicious knife. She brought the blade in a local bar that held a bunch of drunks. When she walked outside with the man that was selling it to her, she played with it to make sure the weight felt right. Then, as she agreed to the price and prepared to hand him the money for it, she dropped the funds to grab the man's wrist and plunged the knife into the man's heart. He died instantly. She wiped the blood off the blade on his shirt and gathered the money from the ground. Olya dragged the body behind the skiff where it was found the next day after the bin was dumped. She crouched down, grabbing the girl by her long blonde hair. "I can gut your pretty face. I may just do so," she whispered in a deep growl. Adelheid was twisting her wrist to build up the sweat around them where they had been bound by a cord. She looked over at Dirk as she barely turned her head. His eyes drifted and went to her hands. She was almost loose. He was trying to loosen his own bonds, and one hand was free, but it held it behind his back as if it was still secured. Olya held the hunting knife to slide the back of the wide blade along the girl's cheek, then turned the blade to stroke under the girl's right eye and pressed it to draw several droplets of blood. "Or I could gut out your eye." Adelheid's lips trembled. "You bitch," she growled. Olya brought the knife along her cheek, hard and fast. The swift slice sunk deep, cutting its way from tear duct to jawline of the girl. Adelheid thrust her right arm upward, knocking the blade away. She thrust hard enough that in an upward motion to continue slamming the heel of her hand into Olya's throat like her grandfather had taught her. The SVR agent staggered back as she dropped the knife to grab her crushed windpipe, gasping and choking for air intake that never came through the rupture that made her choke on her own blood. Meskovich turned his head to see the woman hit the ground and flare as she gasped for air. He gave the boy the chance he needed. Dirk rolled and lashed out. The agent's wrist was gripped and twisted with such vicious strength that the sound of a grinding pop echoed through the forest, which caused the gun to fire around next to Dirk's head into the ground. Taking off guard by the girls' and boys' moves, Desta was too surprised by the broken wrist to deal with the elbow thrown back into his crotch from the boy, who rolled and gained his feet to grab Adele's hand and yank her to her feet as she swept the knife up from the ground, and they fled. Doubled over, he transferred the gun to his left hand and fired several rounds at the fleeing teens. Bullets thudded into several oaks as more were fired and tore bark from the pines and ripped leaves off ashes and birch. Dirk threw out his left arm. Adelheim bolted in that direction of northwest. Dirk went at an angle to the east. He could hear movement behind him. As he pounded through the trees and underbrush, Dirk caught his boot heel on a piece of root broken through the ground as he tried to get his balance but stumbled. He fell forward, rolled, tumbled, and landed against a log rotted and covered with mold and moss. Dirk blinked hard through the blood that now ran into his eye from the head wound where he bounced off an overhanging low branch. His neck was throbbing and his shoulders hurt from where the muscles had been pulled back and overstretched. The shadows broke through the trees by the fading sunlight and into twilight as he straightened to focus, and he had to repeatedly blink away the blood. Sounds of sticks that snapped drew Dirk's attention back to where he had run from. He pushed himself up to trundle over the log. His tall, lanky frame rolled to crouch behind it. The teen saw an awkward movement of a large figure as there was a lurch to the Russian male's walk while he slowed. What he saw terrified him. Dirk watched as the man placed a gun under his right arm and reached into a pocket. He fumbled to retrieve a loaded clip and dropped the weapon into the leaves as he tried to pop the empty one loose. Dirk watched as the man drug his good hand through the leaves. Once he found it, he set the gun down and put a foot on it to attempt to shove the other clip into the gun. But to Dirk's relief, he failed. "Please, Adele, do not risk yourself. Stay hidden," the boy thought. Something broke cover and crashed through the forest. It snorted, then growled and charged. A wild boar stormed through the brush. Meskovich grabbed the second weapon he had as he left the first on the ground and tried to aim and open fire wildly. This was caused as he could not control the gun's recoil in his less dominant hand. He emptied the weapon as it flew from his grip to thud on the ground and slid in the wet leaves from the storm of the prior days. "Belaya!" he cursed in Russian. Scrambling for the gun, he laid a hand on it and attempted to jumble the rounds and course as he looked around for the boar, and cursed as he looked around for the boar. He dropped the bullets he was trying to get loose from his pocket as he fumbled with the empty clip and the first weapon, and they splayed across the leaves. The boar changed directions as it put its head down and disappeared into the undergrowth. The agent cursed in Russian, a long, filthy line, while the light started to fade into darkness of the full-on evening. He waved the empty gun through the air, not able to reload either the clip for this one nor the other one, as he could not find that weapon. There was a snort from the underbrush, followed by a grunt and a growl. Meskovich backed away from where the boar went to ground, as he seemed to fumble for what may be another. No, it was not a third clip. The man tossed the gun away to pull out a phone. He pressed the button and waited. Dirk smiled. "There is no cell phone reception out here, you bastard. Good luck in finding some, he thought to himself in a jumbled pattern of thought as his head was starting to hurt. The man held the phone to the sky, then turned into a circle. He cursed once more in Russian, cursed the woman he was assigned to work with, and cursed his own stupidity for not thinking these teens, whose last name was Braun, would not have learned something from their grandfather's service. Yes, over the years as an operative for the U.S. here in Germany, and having a French uncle who was not only Interpol but French Special Forces and a martial arts teacher to women in self-defense class, Dirks and Adeline, as the twins, had been taught to do defense and to protect themselves, especially after the murder of their father's death and disappearance of their mother, Lucia. This was at what their grandfather believed was their uncle and grandparents' middle son's, Zibdo's, hand. He ended the attempt to make the call and looked about him for his weapons, as he was stupid enough to toss them in his disgust. Then he knelt down to scrape the ground where he thought he'd thrown the gun. Dirk saw the hint of lightness amongst the remaining foliage and a movement. "No, Adel, that is too dangerous. You're too close. Please, no," the teen prayed. There was a snort and a grunt. The man stood upright and backed away without either weapon or the clips and the bullets he had dropped that now lay about the forest floor. Further and deeper in the woods, back towards the clearing, the man backed away, not wanting to take his eyes from where the boar had gone to ground. Dirk waited until he couldn't see the man. He rolled his back against a down log, trying to clear the blood from his eye with his jacket sleeve, then the bottom of his t-shirt. His neck, shoulder, and several areas of his back throbbed in pain. In the distance, he could hear the sounds of rustling, dried, and dead leaves. Then the click of what he couldn't tell. Moments later, there was a noise close by and the crunching of leaves, and then Adele was next to him as she toppled over the log. He grabbed her as he tried to roll to her back to protect them both. He placed a finger to her lips. "Shh." Adele nodded when she sat up, and as she handed him both the empty guns, along with several bullets with one clip in it, and the second spent clip. He popped the clip to have her load both of them. As he turned, he peeked over the log. He searched through the fading light for the man, but didn't see him. He turned to Adeline. Dirk blinked as he saw, through the rising of the moon's light, the jagged gash on her beautiful face. It was hideous. The gash split her cheek from the inside of her eye near the duct to the full length of it just below her jaw and down to her throat, where it seemed that this bitch was going for his sister's jugular vein. He pulled her close and held his sister tight. The twins sat for several moments, frozen in the middle of the woods. A snort and a growl had Idel's head turned into the moonlight. "Wild boar," she whispered. "Ja, it went to ground." "Oh, fuck." She blinked at him. "I know. They are dangerous. We must be careful. Where is the boar hound when we need them?" We take it slow. Slow movement was that out there. Dirk tore part of his shirt, encrusted with dirt and his own blood, and bunched it in his fist to put his hand to the gash on her face and try to stem the bleeding, where it now would have no question of marring her beautiful face for the rest of her life. They needed to get her to the hospital. The blood ran down to drip onto her shirt that was caked with dirt, and so much blood for him to think it could have come from her alone. It also flowed through the rag he used and his fingers. "You'll need a doctor." His hand trembled. She shook her head and jerked away to turn the direction as a vehicle started. A door sounded as it shut, and then it drifted into the night. "You have the keys to our truck?" Adel whispered in German. "Ja." He held them out from his pocket. "We need to get the truck out of the ditch." Adelheid rose and swayed. Dirk stood. "Lean on me. You have lost much blood. That bitch tried to cut your throat." Adel held onto her brother. The two stumbled in the moonlight over roots and down branches. They watched the underbrush for the boar. However, it laid quietly, and there was no stirring of the leaves, no breaking of sticks or branches, no crunch of leaves except for those under their own feet. Once they came into the clearing where they had been forced down on the ground. There on the ground, under a pile of leaves, lit by the moon's glow, was a mound that seemed to lay crumpled along the tree line. Adel turned her bloody face to Dirk's filthy and torn shirt. As a pre-med student, he watched the body. There was no rise and fall or anything from the woman's body. She lay dead. "That way." Dirk pointed to the embankment where the Zaz came to rest in the ditch at an angle on the collapsed side of the road's shoulder. The doors still lay open where they had been dragged from. They struggled down the embankment with bits of dirt and rock tumbling beneath their feet. Dirk slid on his backside and twisted to grab onto a root. "Adele, sit and slide, or you will fall." His feet hit the bottom of the rutted hillside. Her twin brother stood to catch her as she slid the rest of the way and turned onto her belly to push off the slope's dirt. They walked, or rather tripped, on weakened legs to lean into the truck. The glove box was opened. Papers were strewn on the floor and seat. With shaking hands, Adele gathered the papers and put them back into the envelopes they'd been dumped from. Then she looked at her shoulder bag that lay dumped between the seats. Adel started to put things back. She jerked to a stop. "Dirk, my address book is missing. He has taken this." "Why?" "I am pretty sure I do not know why, but we must get out of here now. The body. I killed her." She threw the rest of the items into the bag. "My bone is broken." Adel held it up. "Get behind the wheel." He handed her the keys and set the one empty weapon and the second loaded one and clip on the floor. "I will push if need be, but no matter, you will not get phone service here. We are in red zone." Adel climbed across the seat to slide behind the wheel. "Do you have your phone?" "Look at the dashboard. It is smashed." He shut the door to go to the back of the truck as Adel started it, then slid the driver's door shut. The team put the truck in gear to let out the clutch. Dirk put his shoulder and back against the reel of the Zuz to push with his legs. The truck broke loose from where she rested for Dirk to stagger backwards and land on his bottom. As he hit the ground, he felt the jar of pain run from his coccyx bone up his spine and into his injured shoulder and neck. He knew he'd been hurt, but not how badly. Dirks was slow to be able to scramble to his feet because of the back pain, and there was no way for him to run to the side of the truck. He walked slowly, reaching out his hand to rest it against the side of the Zuz to keep himself upright. When Dirks made it, he lowered his head. He had to take several deep breaths before he was able to reach for the door. His hand trembled as it rested on the handle. Adelheid reached over and slammed the door open. Dirks, you are hurt. Get in, please. He gave a nod. Jabul, I am hurt. Is my back, shoulder, and neck. I not know what all damage is done. She leaned over to help to ease him into the seat, then slid the seatbelt across his lap. Once settled, the door was then shut, and Adel accelerated. He has my phone book. He has the Billix address of the bed and breakfast and the home in Long Island, New York. Dirk faced forward. Get us to Uncle Michelle's and Uncle Joseph. I am going there now, she told him. We need also to get you to a doctor or the hospital. Ja, I am lightheaded. I believe you are correct. She nodded and swung the van around to drive back towards the hotel. Chapter 49. Meskovich had two addresses for the couple who sold the truck to the German teen twins. He had a few serious issues right now that he needed to deal with on this night. It would not be good at this point with what he needed to do. The first problem was the girl had killed Oya. She managed to crush his partner's windpipe with the strike of her upturned palm and the heel of her hand. In doing so, the blow cut off the air supply and ruptured something in the throat. Desta shook his head. He did not know what, but with the broken wrist, he could not do anything. The break in his wrist was the second issue. He could not stand there and wait for her to go. Desta had gone after the two teen figuring they would stay together. Then, to his surprise, they did not. As he returned to the clearing, Oya was still alive, but seemed to be strangling. When he then tried to do anything to keep her alive, he knew she was choking to death on her own blood, and with the airflow disabled, he could do not a damn thing. Oya died a slow, suffering death that took more than 15 minutes. So, what to do? That was the question now. He left her body there. Desta smashed the phones in the truck and took this book that laid on the bank sheet next to him. The third issue was he, like Oya, had lost SVR-issued weapons. Now, how was he to explain that to their higher-ups? Oya had not informed any of their senior agents of the loss of her own weapons. When he met her at the airport, he had to use his own credit cards to purchase her jeans and blouse she now lay dead in. While waiting at the airport, her suitcase was stolen. Along with this loss was that of her passport, all of her identification, and whatever money she may have had. There was no way for him to actually get her out of Germany. They would need to call in for an evacuation of her to get her free. Now she lay dead in the woods. She had also been identified as the woman that had stabbed to death not just a German man, but a Berlin police officer who was off duty as he saw her leaving the alleyway. Her description had been broadcast, and they were searching for her. Desta's other issue was he needed to get the wrist fixed and get his ass out of Berlin and Germany altogether before these twins reported to their uncle. An uncle of all things, Olya did not tell him was that the twins' uncle was an Interpol sergeant, nor did she tell him that they were the grandchildren of Olaf Braun, retired head of Germany's intelligence service. Christ, Olya, how stupid could you get? The airport would be watched for him. Michel Duladante already knew he was here, and he had seen he and Olya at the Copenhagen Cafe, so that created its own problems. Those two, I had no doubt, would alert the goddamned Interpol asshole who now held Tashkov. I should not have listened to Olya. I should have killed the teens, then searched the truck, but she wanted to play her games, as she is one of President's lovers, and yet to told her yet. But how do I report back that his bedmate is dead at the hands of a teenage girl? Meskovich, can you say he will not give a shit, but our commanding officer will, as she is his fucked up daughter? How to do this? I will need to inform that her arrogance cost her her life. Someone has not done their job in intelligence or something. We did not receive enough information on what is truly what, and that is Commander's problem. He had understood from Olya that even as Sergeant Michel Duladante was preparing to retire, he was like that of an English bulldog with a bone. He would not let this go. Meskovich needed to get out of Germany, but the airport was out. With a broken wrist, he could barely drive the vehicle, and now he would need to also report the loss of the weapons and clips. No time to gather items from hotel. It will all have to be left behind. I will need to purchase what I need as I go. He had his passport. Any weapon would lead to a situation to enter the U.S. He would need to make contact before he landed. But the broken wrist, he would need to deal with that on his own. He pulled the vehicle to the side of the road and parked. Desta reached across the street to take hold of the passenger's shoulder strap. He pulled it out until it would not go any further, then turned in the seat and placed his feet against the door. Wrapping the injured hand in the belt, he bit down hard on his lower lip and pulled like hell. He heard the pop, then crack. Desta bit down until the lip was seared by his teeth, and he drew blood, finally passing out from the pain. He worked several hours later as the sun broke the horizon. Meskovich untangled his wrist, and that was now swollen to twice the normal size. He started the vehicle to put in gear and pulled away from the side of the road. Where do I leave from? Poland. Warsaw. He accelerated. Chapter 50. Monday at 7:30 in the morning, Dima was in his elements. The man, although in need of using a cane to walk for support, Dima was at one desktop, then to a laptop, over to printers to receive questions, back to the laptop, into emails, over to the chalkboard to do configurations, moving the mobile phones in the rigs to take a photo of a map of Columbus's travels onto the front line of Washington's winter camp in Valley Forge. A science question came in. Then a question about U.S. government of World War II. Onto another over long distance involving over a long division involving fractions. Slow down! Jess reached out to catch Dima's arm to steady him when his foot caught a chair's wheel. He twisted to keep his balance. Jess kept him from falling by sheer dominating size of his body. Dima sat down hard in the office chair and winced. Are you okay? Jess held onto the arms of the chair. Duh, this is well. Let me get... Dima, you're doing great. Just slow down. We don't need you falling and hurting yourself. The kids will wait a few moments for you to get back to them. You're not in the military anymore, where it has to be done now. Dima smiled. But I am having so much fun. I am back in school. That's great. Just slow down so you don't fall and give me a freaking coronary. Just lean back to stand to his full height. Jeez Louise! He pulled his own chair around to look at a computer he was working on with a student. Who is this Louise? Have you lady? Mickey has not known about. Dima smiled and gave a kick to the floor with his good leg to shove his chair across the room. He spun to slide under the desk, then brought up the next email on the main laptop. No, it's an American saying, you dingaling. Just smiled, shaking his head and rubbed his chin. Couldn't have hired a better teacher. Dima glanced over. Thank you. By the way, your woman and my baby sister. I know. They took Ivana and Dennis to register for school. Dennis may not be in the same classroom as Mickey, but she will introduce him to other friends. Triton is very much excited to introduce Ivana to his friends, and he wants her to join an online group of Harry Potter fans. I am not so comfortable about this. What do you think of this? Will there be adults on the site? Jess spun in the chair to bring his foot clear of T.S. Eliot, where the red fox kit laid in its bed. He leaned down to pet the fox, then looked to where Princess Di and Bobby lay on the pallet next to Puddinhead, snoring in his new sleigh bed. Nothing to worry about on that one. I know you have reasons to worry about the internet groups. Every parent in the world should. However, this Harry Potter in Slithering Hall is safe. Very safe. He put his hand over his heart. When the first book, The Philosopher's Stone, hit the market in June of '97, the Farmington family, who owned Books and Binders, our bookstore, brought it in. Mrs. Farmington's mother, Miss Catherine, has dual citizenship, both Ireland and the U.S. She brought them to New Hope's attention and ordered a pallet of the books. Back then, Dan, Graham, Izzy, Reister, Dakota, Alice, Early, Jim, Christina, Beth Anna, and me were all in our mid-adolescence or early teens. Most of us had younger siblings. She got us and the younger guys hooked because of Mystic Moments. Each of our moms belonged to kinda a covenant, and it was, he lowered his head. The Queen, Auntie Vanilla. She ran Mystic Moments, and Yaya Poppy owned it. True witches. Mom ran it, then purchased the upper half of the building and the above-floor rooms for her work. You know she and Stevie are psychic, or Paskaskayski. In English, psychic. In Jewish, seer. Yes, I know. Well, Miss Catherine's grandson, Mercury, he runs the store now. He loved the book and started the club out of the extra bedroom in his parents', Nathan's and Harriet's, in their home. They've since cleared a large, unused storage room in the basement of the bookstore. Merck and Chief Police Dakota Walker, Detective of Homicide Jim Calhoun, who is also Assistant Police Chief, Dan, Dad, who is retired Lieutenant Commander and Navy SEAL, Romeo Boone, and Private Investigator Tony Bongiovi are monitors. Uncle Tsar and Uncle Rasputin's father, dead Alexei, is now in his mid-90s. He used to tell all of us at our Manduala get-togethers the story of Baba Yaga and her walking house. He would point to Bubby Valkyrie, his wife, and say, "Do not kick her off, for her is Baba Yaga. She is an incredible lady." Jess's Russian accent was so totally bad, it had Dima laughing. They, like my grandparents, had been married forever. That is Russian children's story. They are Russian Jews. They are my Manduala uncles. Dead Alexei is in charge of the website and all who enter it. He spends his retired days in what is called Slytherin Hall. Comfy sofas, overstuffed chairs. There's a hot and cold drink bar, bean bags, large throw pillows, a fireplace, throw blankets, and a huge desk and chair to monitor and protect any child that comes online to ask about Harry or his world. He has taken on the personification of Karakovkov, but a good kind of Karakov, kind of what Dumbledore would be if he were from Drumstag. And yeah, I know I'm pronouncing it all wrong. Mickey will correct me on that. But he watches over what he claims as his and Bubby Valkyrie's ditty. We are all their ditty. Ditty? That is Old Russian. It means children, kids, grandchildren, family. Yep. He left all of his behind when he defected to marry Bubby Valkyrie. Then, in the evening, after our work ends, or when we're off schedule, the monitors take over. It's a Manduala website for the series. So, it's very safe for her and Dennis to be part of when Tatiana is old enough to have the series start to be read to her. Well, God willing, Dead Alexei and Bubby Valkyrie will still be here for them to have the honors of him settling in his enormous reading chair and have her in his lap as he reads to her. He does an incredible Kakakov voice. It's a safe gathering place for the kids as well, and as the bookstore, it brings them in to read. Also, Mercury does an incredible deal with the kids. The kids can claim a book with a deposit. They can pay off as they read it. It stays there, and when it's paid for, it's theirs. And they can take forever to read and pay for it. Down payment is 50 cents, and usually if they're settled in and Dad sees them working hard to pay that book off and they're asking questions and reading, Dad pays the book off for them. He also set up an account that he puts funds into for the kids that can't afford that 50 cents or the cost of a book. I would very much like to meet this elder and to say thank you to this Karakarov, because lots of times in Russia, the boy who lived is used by, well, I not know the word is in English, but very bad people, men mostly. We have several who, well, St. Petersburg, Moscow, Yekaterinburg, Golzin, the children, they are tricked and no see until here they're called predators, pedophiles, child molesters, and worst of all, child serial killers. Sadly, the U.S. has them also. Because of something happening almost 16 years ago here in New Hope, our antennae are always up, especially a good friend of mine and Dan's, Graham Calhoun, is about 7 years younger than us. He's quiet and a little on the shy side, but he works out with us at the training center where I and Dan box. His folks own the B&B. He's housekeeping manager there. Graham, one-on-one and over a kid, he will do as our old American saying goes, kick ass and take names. His big brother Jimmy backing him, and his brother-in-law Labu Sanjay, who is Ugandan American, and that family has lived through shit that Idi Amin caused. Plus, the rest of us under that shit heap, and Graham would be the leader and commander of a kick-ass war. Just turned back to his computer. Ah, hell. Let the kitten out of the sack. He glanced at Dima. What is it? Is something I need to know about this man? Dima blinked at him. New Hope, as you'll find out, is a safe place for folks who are LGBTQI+. It's an artist community. Our Graham keeps it to himself and some friends outside of Manduala, of the Manduala family. He's gay, but has a best friend since high school days, Destiny Granberry. She owns and runs Destiny Earth Vibes hair and body care day spa. She keeps my Locus and Dan straight. Her crew is real good with kids. He ran his finger around a curl and brought it down to push it behind his ear. Mickey loves her, and Mama Licorice Springfield Applegate. He clicked several keys and turned to face Dima. Physical therapy. Mama Licorice was a registered nurse before she retired from St. Mary's Hospital after almost 40 years. Give me a moment. Jess picked up the phone and dialed and pressed the speaker. Xanayo and Beauty, New Hope Training Center, a deep, slow-spoken voice answered. Hey, Isadore, it's Jess. And if you know what's good for you, short shit, it's Izzy, the man growled. Jess smiled. Iz, I've got a couple of questions, to which I might have the answer. Manduala. What do you need, brother? And how can I help? I need to know if you and Flea still do the physical therapy at the training center, or is she in the new building behind it that's attached? Hell yeah, she just redid her required course to upgrade her license. She's in the new building that Manduala Foundation helped to create. What the hell did you or Dan do? And it better not be that Mickey, my goddaughter, is hurt, or hold your tomahawk scalp knife and ease off your bowstring, Chief Don Eagle. I could squash you in a ring for that free Irish rebel. I know you won't, because my daughter is best friends with your daughter, and Dan's and mine and Graham's goddaughters are yours and Flea's, Gracie, River, and Delta. And if you're, and it was your idea when Joyce Jones had to move to cheer her up to find Jasper, who needed her as much as she needed him, and Graham brought her the cat. Thank you, you fucker. What's happened now? Jess smiled. That tiny be-ragged Persian kitten that stole all your hearts and turned your world upside down. We are hosting a family from Ukraine. The Billicks. Stevie has already been quicker on the draw than you ever could. Smarter, too. She found the right one in Rain. You, other than our Mickey, you're screwed bad, brother. She and Annie stopped in a few minutes ago. Flea is going to work with Mama Lickrich. Dimitri is scheduled Monday morning after Thanksgiving at 9. Now a bit of heads up. They're on their way to look at that nasty old thieves' cove between Dan and your place. Hopefully we can save it for them. There was something said behind Izzy, and Jess couldn't make it out. Yeah, I know, my sweet Flea. 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of booze. That's all that shrink carried in that big old briefcase of his. Jess chuckled. Rum, dude, rum. And that's from Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, 1883. All right, know-it-all from Polar Express. But there's more friggin' empty bottles of booze on that island from that old drunk Dr. Flaky Jack Whack-Jack Man Flanderwalls, and the Alky want-to-be Sigmund Freud, then Captain Cook, Bligh, Bluebeard, Disney's Blackbeard Ghost, Major John Biddle, and Captain Jack Sparrow could use for the police's message in a bottle, or our Graham. God, I love the man, as you know. He's sober almost 16 years now. The booze that he could put away on one of his 2-month benders as a teen. Izzy continued in his deep growl. The family is going to need all of Manduala's hands on deck to handle that place. And I can guarantee it will be our Graham that gets the kids together to gather those bottles and cans, to put together funds for a fishing outing this summer with Uncle Chris and Dad on the riverfront of the B&B. Jess was nodding. More than likely, he gets the kids together. Ricer and Early's Romeo will be with him. What do you say you and I pay for a couple packs of contractors' construction site bags and a big old roll of butcher's twine? There's bound to be cardboard and paper stuff. Deal. And I'll ask Mom to order a pallet of huge paper shopping sacks and talk to Cricket to get the parchment quills sacks, and talk to Cricket at the parchment, quill, and invisible ink office supply and stationery. We'll order stickers to write on so we know what the hell's in those trash bags. Sounds good. I'll get a hold of Peacock Recycle. Will Clark can set something up for us, and I bet we can rent a trash dumpster for anything that isn't recyclable and have Waste Management haul that out. So, my bratty sister and Annie are checking out the disaster. I'll prepare Dima for tears. Annie said about the boat she spotted. I know Stevie will be heartbroken. There's probably more friggin' squatters there. There are town photos of that place being beautiful before the drunk off his ass quack laid his hands on it. Talk to you later, Is. Will do. Dima, welcome to your new homeland. Thank you, he smiled. Just ended the call. We may be in for it, Dima. Why? You will see. I guarantee it. Believe me. And there we will end it for today. Wonder what Annie and Stevie will find at that house, especially after the police had to be called yesterday. I thank you for your time and patience in visiting us today, and I hope you enjoyed the story so far. I will endeavor to try in between packing up around here and, as you heard, the two little hounds wrestling in the background, to get podcast up and running more so than just leaving it sit for over a month. I deeply apologize to those who have subscribed for the long wait in this portion of the book. But next, we will continue on with Escape to a New Hope. I hope you enjoyed the writing. Have a good day, and thank you for visiting. If you like this part of the stories, please hit the like button and subscribe. See if you can share this out. Thank you very much.